Hello everyone and welcome. I want to make my first ever miniature, so let's make a wizard room. I started by making the base out of some scrap cardboard. To make it stop looking like a pile of cardboard, I started making some fancy floors with my favorite helper. I made a file that I cut out of balsa wood with my Cricut. This took just a little bit of time. Not sure if you can see it, but my floors are finished and they look so good. And now it's time to install some hardwood flooring. Then I got to cutting and making bricks, which really led me to understand the hell that Martina from Nerdforge was describing making that castle. Gluing all of these bricks down took quite literally forever. Whole days of my life gone to XPS foam. I also added some brick detailing around the door and the fireplace. Now let's make some tiny bookcases for my tiny wizard because he's gonna have quite a book collection. Again, I'm using balsa wood. I stained them with some watered down brown acrylic paint. Thank you to Maria's Minis for these beautiful antique book covers. I made just under 100 tiny books by cutting them out, folding them, and gluing folded pages in between them. They turned out so cute! My window covers weren't working, so I made some out of this orange netting. The rest of the windows are made from craft foam and a clear plastic candy box. Then I installed the windows outside with some hot glue. Unfortunately, I lost all of my footage making the fireplace, but here's me installing it. Now to make these bricks look better and not blue, with a dark gray bath. Then they got topped with several layers of lighter and lighter gray that I dry brushed on. But it was like really wholesome to work with just candlelight. I highly recommend it for like a relaxing activity if you have anything you can make like just with some candlelight. Finally working on the inside again, I got to painting some tiny tapestries for my wizard to admire. This was a lot harder than I thought it would be, but I'm happy with how they turned out. I wanted to make a little summoning stone for this room, so I used an old resin experiment and then made a clay base. Then I slapped on several layers of black and then silver. Now it's time to start making some wizard workshop tools. First up is a mortar and pestle. And now, so many scrolls made from tea-stained paper. I rolled them up using a needle. Then I realized that there is no furniture for my room yet, so I built a workbench. For the top of the table, I used a piece of balsa wood and covered it in watered down brown acrylic again. To create a nice chaotic workspace, I added some open books, some scrolls for some extra info, the mortar and pestle, a tiny jar, and then even more books and scrolls because you can never know too much as a wizard. It's time to get started on making a desk chair. I went with a night sky theme. For my desk chair, I made a desk out of cardboard and XPS foam. Then I painted it brown and dry brushed a khaki color on top. A desk needs a bunch of books, but it's missing something. A tiny candle. For the wick, I used a found dog whisker that I trimmed later. I made so many tiny scrolls, so I made a little scroll shelf. I covered it in more watered down brown and then filled it with scrolls. I thought the room could use some potion bottles, so I took some old resin gems and glued them together and then painted them. On to making a side table using another failed resin experiment and some barbecue skewers. It needs a cup of tea, a scroll, and a pipe. A side table wouldn't be complete without a sitting chair and a wizard to sit in it. It was hard to make him so small, but I'm really happy with how he turned out. I gave him some hair and a little hat. And into the oven he goes. The chair got covered in brown and the wizard got covered in green. I added some lighter green to his cloak for some depth. I still had some scrolls left over, so I made some scroll holders for the upper level. It's time to start on the fireplace. I took the cover off. To make the switch work without the cover, this little piece needed to be removed, but I'll need to add something to stop the switch from lifting up. So I heated up some pins and stuck them into the plastic. Okay, so it took a couple times to get right. To make the fire part of the fire, I used hot glue. People made this look so much easier than it was, but I got there eventually. Just look at it. It's so cute. I finally figured out the hot glue, and it's gonna be a tiny fire. Then I painted the flame yellow and orange. So I'm working on the fire again, and I gotta say, I just hate how it looks right now. So I'm gonna try a different approach and hope that I hate it less. I decided to make a raised fireplace covered in bricks, so it'll just slip on over the top of the fireplace like this. Then I painted them like the rest of the bricks. I made a couple last-minute scrolls and some tapestries. And lastly, a tiny cauldron.